The morning sunlight spilled softly through the tall windows of the quiet Parisian café, painting the wooden tables with golden streaks. The café was a favorite spot for people who wanted a calm, luxurious atmosphere away from the noisy streets. At one corner table, a billionaire sat alone. He was not loud or showy, but his presence had a subtle authority. He always preferred quiet places where he could enjoy a coffee, think, or watch the world move around him. On this particular morning, the café seemed especially serene. A few regular customers were scattered across the room, sipping espresso and reading newspapers. The air carried the delicate smell of freshly baked croissants and brewed coffee. The sunlight reflected off the polished floor, making the café glow in a comforting way. The billionaire adjusted his cufflinks, not for style, but as a small gesture to feel organized and in control. His eyes scanned the room, noting the small details that many would overlook. The way the sunlight hit the sugar jars, the gentle swaying of the chairs, the faint hum of a street musician outside. As he sipped his coffee, a salesman approached him. The man's clothes were expensive, and his charm was polished, practiced. He carried a small, elegant box in his hands and approached with a confident smile. "Sir, I have something very special for you today," he said, his French flawless and polite. The billionaire looked up, intrigued but cautious. Over the years, he had learned to be careful, especially when someone approached him in public with something extraordinary to sell. The salesman opened the box to reveal a Rolex watch. Its gold and silver gleamed under the soft morning light. It looked flawless, almost perfect. The billionaire raised an eyebrow, trying to hide his curiosity. A watch was not just a watch to him. It was a statement, a piece of craftsmanship that could reflect time, patience, and precision. The salesman spoke rapidly, pointing out the details, the supposed rarity, and the incredible price. It was tempting, almost too tempting. Something about it felt off, but it was hard to place exactly what. Nearby, a young waitress moved carefully between the tables, her tray balanced expertly in her hands. She had been working at the café for a few years and had a reputation for being observant. She could notice when something was out of place or when a customer's behavior changed. Today, she noticed the salesman and the watch immediately. Something in her gut told her that it was not right. She slowed her steps slightly as she approached another table, keeping a discreet eye on the scene. The way the salesman handled the box, the precision of his gestures, and the eagerness in his voice all seemed rehearsed. The billionaire leaned closer to examine the watch, rotating it slowly under the light. The gold shimmered, the face was elegant, and the movement seemed precise. He had seen many fake watches before, but there was always a first impression that could deceive anyone, no matter how experienced. He felt a flicker of doubt, a tension that made him pause. The waiter at his table was polite, not intervening, leaving the decision entirely to him. The waitress, sensing the moment was crucial, walked closer, pretending to clear nearby tables but keeping her attention on the watch. She noticed small flaws that the untrained eye might miss. The engraving on the back was slightly off. The second hand didn't move as smoothly as a genuine Rolex should. Her mind raced quickly, thinking about how to warn the billionaire without causing a scene or embarrassing anyone. She knew the café had regular customers who would react if there was an argument, and she wanted to prevent a confrontation. The salesman, noticing that the billionaire was hesitating, leaned in and lowered his voice slightly. "This offer is only for a short time," he said smoothly. "A watch like this, with such rarity, does not appear often. You must decide quickly." His eyes flicked around, as if to see if anyone was watching. The billionaire remained calm but knew that quick decisions in such situations often led to mistakes. He had learned over the years that the most dangerous offers were those that seemed urgent and exclusive. Meanwhile, the waitress realized she needed to act fast. Her French was fluent, and she had a natural confidence that often surprised people. She approached the billionaire's table under the guise of asking if he needed anything else. As she bent slightly, she whispered quietly, "This is fake." The billionaire froze for a moment, caught off guard by the unexpected warning. He looked up at her, a mixture of curiosity and surprise in his eyes. The waitress kept her tone calm, almost matter-of-fact, pointing subtly to the watch. The salesman's smile faltered slightly, sensing that his plan might not be working as smoothly as he intended. He tried to maintain composure, but the slightest tension was noticeable. The billionaire examined the watch again, this time with the waitress's words in mind. He turned it over, checked the engravings, and felt the weight. Slowly, the realization began to dawn. Something about it did not match the authenticity he expected. Her warning, delivered so quietly and confidently, had sparked the doubt that his instincts alone had not fully caught. The café itself seemed to hold its breath. Patrons continued their conversations quietly, unaware of the drama unfolding nearby, yet the subtle tension was palpable. The waitress stepped back just enough to give space but stayed nearby, her eyes attentive. The billionaire, now fully alert, decided to test the salesman. He asked a few detailed questions about the watch's origin, its materials, and the specific model details. The salesman answered, his voice slightly more hurried and less confident than before. With each answer, the billionaire noticed inconsistencies. The details did not match any known records of genuine Rolex watches. He began to nod slowly, his mind connecting the dots. The calm and discreet intervention by the waitress had been enough to prevent a serious mistake. He realized that, without her insight, he could have been misled by appearances and charm. The waitress, seeing the billionaire's attention shift, quietly moved to another table to continue her work, careful not to draw unnecessary attention. She had done her part and hoped it would be enough. The billionaire, now fully aware, subtly pushed the watch box back towards the salesman. His eyes met the salesman's, and there was no anger, only calm authority and understanding that the deception had been uncovered. The morning continued, the sunlight streaming through the windows, reflecting off the polished surfaces. The billionaire remained at his table, drinking his coffee with a new appreciation for the quiet vigilance around him. The waitress went about her work, modest and focused, unaware that she had just played a crucial role in preventing a financial loss. Outside, the city moved on as usual, but inside the café, a small moment of honesty and courage had quietly changed the course of the morning. The encounter left a lasting impression on both of them. The billionaire had been reminded that even the most careful and experienced people could be vulnerable to deception. The waitress had learned the importance of trusting her instincts and speaking up when something felt wrong. Both of them carried a sense of quiet satisfaction, the kind that comes from doing the right thing without expecting recognition. By the time the morning rush began, the scene had returned to normal. Patrons chatted, coffee machines hissed, and the aroma of fresh pastries filled the air. The billionaire finished his cup, smiled politely at the waitress, and left the café, careful not to draw attention but clearly grateful. The waitress continued her shift, her eyes alert and her mind engaged, ready for whatever might come next. The café, a place of calm and elegance, had witnessed a small but significant victory of honesty, intuition, and courage. The morning calm of the café slowly gave way to the gentle hustle of mid-morning customers. More people began to trickle in, drawn by the warm sunlight and the rich aroma of freshly baked pastries. The billionaire remained at his corner table, quietly observing the café with the kind of awareness that came from years of experience. He had been in situations before where appearances were misleading, and the memory of the nearly phony Rolex lingered in his mind. He realized how easy it could be for someone to be deceived if they let their guard down, even for a moment. The young waitress continued her work, moving gracefully between tables. She had learned the rhythm of the café well, balancing trays and managing orders while keeping a watchful eye on every detail. She noticed the subtle changes in the billionaire's expression as he reflected on the encounter with the salesman. There was a quiet respect in his gaze, the kind reserved for people who act with integrity. She felt a small surge of pride, but she remained modest, focusing on her duties. Her experience taught her that even small actions could have significant consequences. Meanwhile, the salesman lingered nearby, clearly unsettled by the earlier interruption. He observed the billionaire from a distance, trying to gauge whether the warning had ruined his opportunity completely. He noticed the calm but keen attention of the waitress and felt a pang of unease. Her presence, though unassuming, had been enough to disrupt his carefully planned pitch. The salesman knew that his approach relied on distraction and charm, and the quiet, observant waitress had dismantled both. The billionaire, sipping his coffee, began to reflect on how easily the situation could have gone wrong. His mind ran through scenarios, analyzing each moment of the interaction with the salesman. He thought about the subtle inconsistencies in the watch, the way it was presented, and the urgency in the salesman's tone. He appreciated the instinctive warning from the waitress, realizing that her courage had prevented a costly mistake. In the world of wealth and business, such moments were rare and valuable. As he pondered the incident, the waitress approached another table, smiling warmly at a new customer. She had a natural way of making people feel at ease, and her attentiveness did not go unnoticed. She checked the customer's order carefully, ensuring everything was perfect. Though she appeared focused on ordinary tasks, her mind remained alert to any unusual activity in the cafe. She understood that vigilance was a quiet skill, one that could save not just money but also peace of mind. Back at his table, the billionaire made a small gesture, leaving a note with a generous tip for the waitress. It was not just a reward but a silent acknowledgement of her insight and courage. She noticed the gesture later and felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing she had done the right thing without expectation. The moment reinforced a simple truth. Integrity and careful observation could have a profound impact, often more than wealth or status alone. The salesman, realizing that he had lost his chance, retreated quietly, his confidence shaken. He understood that the encounter was over and that the billionaire would not be fooled again. The subtle but firm intervention of the waitress had redirected the course of the morning, leaving the scammer to reflect on the unexpected obstacle he had encountered. It was a small victory, but one that demonstrated the power of honesty and awareness. As the cafe continued to fill, conversations mingled with the gentle clatter of cups and plates. The ambience was lively but not overwhelming, creating an environment where people could relax and enjoy their time. The billionaire observed the interactions around him, noticing how people connected through simple gestures and shared moments. He realized that sometimes the most meaningful encounters happened quietly, without fanfare or attention. The warning from the waitress was one such moment, a quiet act of courage that had far-reaching effects. The young waitress, moving between tables, continued to observe the world with a sharp eye. She noticed small details, the way a customer smiled, the way the sunlight fell on a stack of menus, and the subtle changes in behavior that hinted at deeper stories. Her awareness was a blend of experience and intuition, honed by years of interacting with people from all walks of life. She understood that each day in the cafe offered opportunities to make a difference, often in ways that were unseen and unacknowledged. The billionaire, now fully alert, began to engage in casual conversation with other patrons, discussing topics ranging from art to technology. He shared insights without revealing too much about his wealth or identity, preferring meaningful interaction over superficial attention. The cafe, which had witnessed a near deception, now became a place of genuine connection. The presence of the waitress, quietly influential, had ensured that the day continued without further complications. As the morning wore on, the cafe staff worked seamlessly, each member contributing to the smooth rhythm of service. The young waitress handled orders with grace, ensuring that each customer felt valued and attended to. Her mind occasionally wandered back to the earlier encounter, reflecting on how quickly events had unfolded. She realized that her ability to act decisively, even in a subtle way, had prevented potential loss and embarrassment for someone she had never met before. The awareness of this impact gave her a quiet sense of fulfillment. The billionaire, finishing his second cup of coffee, prepared to leave. He stood, adjusted his jacket, and glanced at the young waitress. His eyes conveyed gratitude, recognition, and a silent acknowledgement of her role in the morning's events. Though they exchanged no words, the connection was understood. He left the cafe, walking calmly through the sunlit streets, carrying with him not just his belongings but a renewed respect for intuition, integrity, and quiet bravery. Back inside, the cafe returned to its usual rhythm. The young waitress continued her shift, serving pastries, taking orders, and maintaining the welcoming atmosphere that made the place special. The near incident with the fake Rolex had passed, leaving behind a subtle but important lesson. Vigilance and honesty could change outcomes in ways that might not be immediately visible. She carried on with her work, content in the knowledge that she had made a difference, however quietly. The story of that morning, though seemingly ordinary, was filled with small but significant moments that reflected human nature, trust, and courage. Each interaction, from the scammer's approach to the waitress's intervention, highlighted the importance of awareness and integrity. The billionaire's calm response, combined with the waitress's keen observation, created a narrative of quiet heroism that could inspire anyone to act thoughtfully and decisively. The café, a place of warmth and routine, had become a stage for a small but meaningful victory of truth and intuition. Throughout the day, the waitress moved among the tables, aware of the flow of people and energy in the room. She noticed smiles, gestures of kindness, and moments of connection. Each observation reinforced her belief in the power of awareness and attentiveness. The events of the morning, particularly her role in preventing the Rolex scam, became a quiet anchor for her confidence and sense of purpose. She understood that even small actions could ripple outward, affecting people and situations in ways that were profound but unseen. By the time the afternoon approached, the cafe was filled with a gentle buzz of conversation. Patrons chatted with friends, colleagues, and loved ones, sharing moments of warmth and human connection. The billionaire's presence had faded into the background, but the lesson of the morning lingered. The young waitress continued her work, carrying the quiet satisfaction of knowing she had acted wisely and bravely. The rhythm of the cafe went on, with each small detail, observation, and interaction contributing to the overall harmony of the day. In that ordinary yet extraordinary setting, human intuition, courage, and integrity had quietly prevailed. The morning had slowly turned into early afternoon, and the cafe was now bustling with activity. The sunlight outside had grown warmer, pouring through the windows and creating a golden glow that reflected off the polished surfaces inside. The young waitress continued to weave through the tables, her tray balanced expertly in her hands. Every movement she made seemed effortless, yet there was an awareness in her eyes that showed she was always observing, always noticing details others might miss. At the corner table, the billionaire remained seated, sipping on a fresh cup of espresso. He was calm but clearly thinking, replaying the encounter with the salesman in his mind. He knew the watch had been fake, but what intrigued him most was the courage and intuition of the waitress who had spoken up. He had seen many people in high-pressure situations, but it was rare to find someone so perceptive and fearless in the face of subtle deception. There was something refreshing about her honesty and the way she had intervened quietly, without drawing attention or seeking recognition. The cafe staff worked in a seamless rhythm, taking orders, serving drinks, and maintaining a welcoming environment for all customers. Despite the rush, the young waitress moved with grace, always alert. Her mind occasionally drifted back to the Rolex incident, reflecting on the small details she had noticed. The engraving on the back, the way the second hand moved, the faint imperfections that made her instincts scream that something was wrong. She realized that her observation had made all the difference and felt a quiet sense of pride. The salesman, having left the cafe earlier, lingered in the background near the entrance, glancing around nervously. He had not anticipated being confronted by someone so perceptive, and he was now reconsidering his methods. The sight of the waitress, confident and composed, had disrupted his plan completely. He knew that the billionaire's keen attention to detail, combined with her intervention, had thwarted his attempt at deception. There was a subtle lesson here for him, though perhaps one he would not immediately admit. The billionaire, now more relaxed, watched the interactions around him. He observed how people communicated without words. The subtle gestures, the quiet exchanges, the little signs of honesty and connection that often went unnoticed. He reflected on how easy it was for people to be deceived when they let their guard down even momentarily. The experience with the fake Rolex had reminded him that intuition and careful observation were sometimes as valuable as knowledge or experience. The young waitress approached another table, setting down coffee and pastries with a warm smile. She spoke to the customers politely, checking that everything was to their satisfaction. Her demeanor was natural and unpretentious, but there was a quiet strength in the way she carried herself. She had a sense of responsibility that went beyond her job description, an awareness that small actions could have significant consequences. She understood that her decisions, even in subtle ways, could prevent mistakes and protect others from harm. Back at his table, the billionaire began a casual conversation with a nearby patron. He discussed art, history, and travel, sharing insights without revealing personal details about himself. His conversation was thoughtful and engaging, and the patron responded with equal interest. Despite the previous tension, the atmosphere around him remained calm and inviting. The experience with the Rolex incident had made him appreciate the ordinary moments even more. The simple pleasure of observing people, the joy of a well-prepared coffee, and the comfort of a quiet environment where honesty prevailed. The young waitress, moving gracefully among the tables, noticed a new group of customers entering the café. They were tourists, eager and curious, taking in the surroundings with wide-eyed wonder. She greeted them warmly, explaining the menu and answering their questions with patience. Her attention to detail was evident, from the way she recommended certain pastries to the way she ensured each table was clean and inviting. It was clear to anyone observing that she took pride in her work, not for recognition, but because she genuinely cared about the people she served. The billionaire, finishing his espresso, reflected on the role the waitress had played. Her intervention had been subtle but decisive. She had noticed something he had almost missed, and her courage had prevented a potential mistake. He realized that in life, there were moments when quiet observation and timely action could make a significant difference. It was not always about power or wealth. Sometimes, it was about paying attention and trusting one's instincts. The cafe continued to hum with activity, filled with the sounds of conversation, laughter, and the clinking of cups and saucers. The young waitress moved effortlessly through the crowd, her eyes alert to any unusual activity. She noticed small details, the way a customer's hand trembled slightly as they held a cup, the way sunlight reflected off a piece of jewelry, the subtle tension in someone's posture. Each observation was noted mentally, adding to her understanding of the environment and the people within it. The salesman, still lingering near the entrance, seemed increasingly aware that he had underestimated the situation. The calm confidence of the waitress, combined with the billionaire's careful attention, had thwarted his attempt at deception. He recognized that true awareness came not from loud gestures or elaborate plans but from quiet observation and understanding. The lesson was clear, even if he was reluctant to admit it. The billionaire, now preparing to leave, glanced once more at the young waitress. His eyes conveyed a mixture of gratitude, respect, and acknowledgement. There was no need for words. The silent understanding between them was enough. He adjusted his coat, collected his belongings, and walked out into the sunlight, carrying with him not just his possessions but a renewed appreciation for intuition, integrity, and the courage to speak up. The young waitress continued her shift, serving drinks, pastries, and meals with the same dedication and care. She moved among the tables, always alert, always observant, and always ready to act when needed. The experience with the Rolex scam had reinforced her belief in the importance of vigilance and honesty. She understood that her actions, even when small and quiet, could have a profound impact on others. The cafe, once again, returned to its usual rhythm, filled with warmth, conversation, and the subtle beauty of ordinary human interactions. Throughout the afternoon, the young waitress remained attentive, noticing the little details that made the cafe experience special for each patron. She observed the joy in a child's eyes as they enjoyed a pastry, the satisfaction of a customer savoring their coffee, and the quiet contentment of people simply being in a welcoming space. Her awareness and attentiveness created an environment where honesty and trust were valued, and where each person could feel safe and appreciated. The billionaire's departure had left a quiet impression, But the cafe continued to be a place where life unfolded naturally. The young waitress moved seamlessly among the tables, aware that each interaction had meaning. The morning's events, particularly the Rolex incident, had reinforced the idea that courage and observation could prevent mistakes, protect others, and create meaningful connections. Her actions had subtly but significantly changed the course of the day, leaving a lasting impact on both the billionaire and the atmosphere of the cafe. As the sun began to lower, casting a warm, golden hue over the room, the young waitress continued her work with quiet confidence. Each movement, each smile, each careful observation contributed to the rhythm of the cafe. The story of the morning, though unseen by most, had been one of integrity, courage, and the power of intuition. In the ordinary setting of a Parisian cafe, remarkable things had quietly taken place, reminding everyone involved that even small acts of awareness and honesty could create significant, lasting change. The afternoon had grown warmer, and sunlight spilled through the tall cafe windows, casting a golden hue over the tables and chairs. The bustling energy of midday customers created a lively atmosphere, but there was still a sense of calm in the air. The young waitress moved through the cafe with practiced ease, balancing trays, pouring coffee, and ensuring that each table received careful attention. Her eyes, however, remained alert, scanning for anything out of place, just as she had done earlier when the Rolex scam had almost occurred. At a corner table, the billionaire observed the interactions around him. He had returned after a brief walk outside, drawn back by the serene atmosphere of the cafe and the comforting familiarity of its environment. He sat quietly, sipping his espresso and reflecting on the events of the morning. The incident with the fake Rolex had left an impression on him, not because he had nearly been deceived, but because of the quiet courage and sharp intuition of the waitress. It was rare to see someone act with such insight and confidence, especially in the subtle, unobtrusive way she had. The young waitress, moving between tables, noticed a small commotion near the entrance. A man who seemed out of place had entered, glancing nervously around the cafe. He was not aggressive, but his body language suggested he was searching for someone or something. The waitress instinctively approached, offering a polite greeting and asking if he needed assistance. The man responded with vague words, and she could sense that he might be up to no good. Her intuition, honed by years of observation and interaction with people from all walks of life, told her to be cautious. The billionaire, noticing the subtle tension in the cafe, turned his attention to the interaction. He had learned over the years that moments like these required careful observation. He watched as the waitress maintained her composure, speaking calmly and confidently to the man while subtly signaling to the cafe staff to stay alert. It was clear that she had experience in handling delicate situations and could act decisively without causing panic or drawing unnecessary attention. The man hesitated, seemingly aware that his presence had been noticed. He glanced toward the billionaire, whose calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the nervous energy of the newcomer. The billionaire, understanding the subtle dynamics at play, remained silent but observant, allowing the waitress to take the lead. She continued to engage the man politely, asking questions and listening carefully, all while maintaining a natural, unassuming posture that did not reveal her awareness of his suspicious behavior. As the situation unfolded, the cafe staff subtly positioned themselves to monitor the man without making it obvious. The atmosphere remained calm, but there was an underlying tension that only those paying close attention could sense. The billionaire admired the young waitress's ability to manage the moment with quiet authority. Her actions were not loud or dramatic, but they carried an undeniable weight, showing that courage and intelligence often worked best when expressed subtly and strategically. The man, realizing that he had been observed and that his actions were being carefully noted, shifted uncomfortably. The waitress, sensing his hesitation, maintained her polite tone while increasing her focus. She asked a few more questions, guiding the conversation in a way that would reveal his intentions without confrontation. Her body language was relaxed but confident, signaling to both the man and the cafe staff that she was in control. The billionaire watched closely, noting how effective her calm and measured approach was in diffusing potential tension. The young waitress noticed a small detail that confirmed her suspicion. The man fumbled with a briefcase, and she saw the edge of a suspicious object inside. Her heart raced slightly, but she remained composed, knowing that any overt reaction could escalate the situation. She subtly moved closer to the billionaire's table, catching his eye and giving a small, almost imperceptible nod. It was a silent signal, a way of communicating without alerting the man to their awareness. The billionaire understood immediately. He quietly rose from his seat and approached the man, his presence calm but firm. He spoke in a low, steady voice, asking the man to explain himself and his purpose in the café. The man, now aware that he was no longer dealing with an ordinary customer, hesitated and stammered. The young waitress stayed close, ready to assist if needed, but confident that the billionaire's calm authority would handle the situation effectively. The interaction grew more tense as the man realized that his attempt to deceive or intimidate had failed. The waitress's keen observation, combined with the billionaire's composed intervention, had exposed him without any confrontation. The cafe patrons continued their routines, unaware of the subtle drama unfolding near the entrance. The sunlight continued to pour in, highlighting the serene yet attentive atmosphere that the young waitress had helped maintain. As the man struggled to respond, the billionaire asked a few more questions, each one measured and precise. The man's answers grew more inconsistent, revealing the truth of his intentions. The young waitress stayed close, providing silent support and keeping the environment calm. Her presence alone communicated authority and awareness, reinforcing the billionaire's control of the situation. Finally, the man, realizing that he could no longer manipulate the situation, attempted to leave quietly. The cafe staff subtly guided him toward the exit, ensuring that he did not cause further disruption. The billionaire and the young waitress watched as he left, their expressions calm but alert. The brief moment of tension had passed, and the cafe returned to its normal rhythm, the sounds of conversation, laughter, and coffee machines filling the air once more. The billionaire, seated once again at his corner table, reflected on the events. He realized that the young waitress's quick thinking and subtle intervention had prevented a potential incident from escalating. Her ability to observe, interpret, and act with precision had not only protected the cafe but also demonstrated a rare combination of courage, intelligence, and composure. He felt a deep respect for her, knowing that her actions went beyond simple duty and reflected a strong moral compass and keen awareness. The young waitress, resuming her regular duties, felt a quiet satisfaction. She had acted decisively and correctly, maintaining safety and order without drawing attention or causing alarm. Her observation and intuition had once again proven invaluable, reinforcing her confidence in her own judgment and skills. She moved among the tables with renewed focus, serving customers with care while remaining alert to any unusual activity. The afternoon passed smoothly, with the cafe maintaining its lively yet calm atmosphere. Patrons enjoyed their coffee and pastries, engaged in conversations, and savored the warm ambience. The young waitress continued to serve with grace and attentiveness, her mind quietly reflecting on the events that had unfolded. She understood that her vigilance and willingness to act had made a meaningful difference, and she carried a quiet pride in her ability to navigate complex situations with skill and composure. The billionaire, finishing his espresso, prepared to leave once again. He stood, adjusted his coat, and approached the young waitress. Without words, he offered a gesture of gratitude, acknowledging her role in the afternoon's events. The young waitress nodded subtly, understanding the silent communication. She had done her job well, protecting others and maintaining order, and the acknowledgement from the billionaire was a testament to her skill and courage. As he exited the cafe, the sunlight catching the edges of the windows, the billionaire carried with him a renewed appreciation for the power of observation, intuition, and calm authority. The young waitress, now returning to her routine, felt a sense of fulfillment, knowing that her actions had prevented potential trouble and upheld the integrity of the cafe. The rhythm of the day continued, each interaction, gesture, and careful observation contributing to the smooth operation of the café and the satisfaction of its patrons. The story of the afternoon, though subtle and mostly unnoticed by the majority of customers, had been one of courage, vigilance, and the power of quiet action. The young waitress's ability to remain calm, perceptive, and decisive had prevented a situation from escalating, protecting both the billionaire and the café. Her actions served as a reminder that even small, unassuming gestures of awareness and integrity could have profound effects, shaping events and ensuring that honesty and vigilance prevailed. The late afternoon sunlight filtered through the café windows, painting long shadows across the polished floors and casting a warm glow over the patrons. The young waitress moved among the tables with effortless grace, her tray balanced perfectly as she served coffee, pastries, and light meals. Despite the rush and activity around her, there was a quiet focus in her eyes, a constant awareness of everything happening in the café. She had already proven her alertness and intuition earlier in the day, and now her attention remained as sharp as ever. At the corner table, the billionaire sat quietly, observing the interactions around him. He had returned briefly to gather his thoughts and reflect on the events of the morning and afternoon. The near encounter with the fake Rolex and the later suspicious man had reminded him that even in places that seemed calm and ordinary, deception could exist. But what had impressed him most was the young waitress's ability to notice, interpret, and act with quiet courage. Her presence had altered the course of the day in ways that were subtle but significant. The café buzzed with the energy of patrons enjoying conversations, laughter, and the comforting rhythm of clinking cups and saucers. The young waitress moved seamlessly through the crowd, attending to each table with care and efficiency. Her focus extended beyond the tasks at hand. She observed expressions, body language, and small details that often went unnoticed. She noticed a couple struggling to decide on their orders, a child staring wide-eyed at a pastry display, and an elderly customer carefully adjusting his newspaper. Every detail mattered to her, and her attentiveness created a welcoming and safe environment for all. The billionaire, now reflecting on the entire day, realized the magnitude of the waitress's impact. Her intervention with the Rolex scam had prevented him from making a costly mistake, and her calm handling of the suspicious man had maintained safety without drawing unnecessary attention. He admired the blend of intelligence, intuition, and courage she had displayed. In a world where quick decisions often led to errors, her ability to act thoughtfully and effectively was remarkable. He understood that her vigilance had not only protected him but had also upheld the integrity of the café. Meanwhile, the young waitress approached a new table, greeting the customers with a warm smile. She offered recommendations, answered questions patiently, and ensured that each person felt welcome and valued. Her natural confidence and calm demeanor made her approachable, yet her keen observation kept her alert to any irregularities. She had learned over time that being attentive, polite, and careful could prevent mistakes and create trust. Her earlier experiences with the Rolex incident and the suspicious man had reinforced the importance of these qualities. The billionaire, noticing her approach, decided to engage in conversation with her. He asked her opinion about the café's atmosphere and how she managed to maintain such composure under pressure. The waitress responded with modesty, explaining that she focused on doing her job well and staying aware of her surroundings. She did not boast about her actions or seek recognition. The billionaire appreciated her humility, realizing that true skill often operated quietly, without the need for accolades or public acknowledgement. As their conversation continued, the café staff worked in harmony, maintaining the flow of service and ensuring that all customers were attended to. The young waitress's earlier interventions had set a tone of attentiveness and calm vigilance, which the rest of the staff followed. The atmosphere remained welcoming and orderly, even amidst the natural chaos of a busy café. The billionaire observed how her leadership, though subtle, influenced those around her, creating a sense of trust and reliability that was palpable. Outside, the sun began to lower, casting a soft golden light over the streets of Paris. Inside the café, conversations continued, but there was a shared sense of peace and satisfaction. The young waitress moved gracefully between tables, aware of the details that mattered. She noticed the way sunlight reflected off a coffee cup, the subtle gestures of patrons enjoying their meals, and the gentle rhythm of the cafe as it functioned smoothly. Every observation reinforced her understanding that her actions had meaning and impact. The billionaire, finishing his coffee, prepared to leave once more. He stood and approached the young waitress, acknowledging her with a polite smile. Without words, he offered a gesture of gratitude, a small token of recognition for her insight, courage, and professionalism. The young waitress responded with a humble nod, understanding the silent communication. She had acted decisively and correctly throughout the day, and this acknowledgement from someone of his stature reinforced the value of her intuition and careful judgment. The cafe returned fully to its normal rhythm, with patrons engaged in conversation, laughter, and the enjoyment of food and drink. The young waitress continued her shift with quiet confidence, knowing that she had made a meaningful difference. Her actions had prevented mistakes, ensured safety, and maintained the integrity of the cafe. She understood that vigilance, courage, and observation were not just skills but ways of living that could positively influence the world around her. Reflecting on the day, the young waitress felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She had acted in moments that required intuition and courage, and her interventions had produced tangible outcomes. The Rolex scam had been averted, and the potentially troublesome situation had been managed effectively. These experiences reinforced her belief in the importance of paying attention, trusting instincts, and speaking up when necessary. She realized that even small, quiet actions could have a ripple effect, influencing events and people in meaningful ways. The billionaire, now walking through the streets of Paris, thought about the lessons of the day. He had been reminded that wealth and experience could only go so far. The ability to observe, interpret, and act decisively was equally important. The young waitress's calm and perceptive approach had demonstrated qualities that were often overlooked but incredibly valuable. Her actions had prevented loss, ensured safety, and maintained a sense of integrity, leaving him with a renewed appreciation for human intuition and honesty. Back in the cafe, the young waitress continued to serve patrons, her movements smooth and efficient. She noticed the satisfaction on customers' faces, the polite interactions between staff and patrons, and the overall harmony of the environment. Her mind occasionally revisited the day's events, reflecting on how her awareness and decisive actions had altered outcomes. Each observation, each gesture, and each careful decision contributed to the atmosphere of trust, safety, and respect that defined the cafe. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows and a warm glow through the windows, the cafe gradually quieted down. Patrons left with smiles, conversations lingered softly in the background, and the young waitress took a moment to pause and observe. She felt the fulfillment that came from knowing she had acted rightly, protecting others and ensuring the smooth functioning of the cafe. Her intuition, vigilance, and courage had left an indelible mark on the day, even if it was largely unseen by the majority of those present. The billionaire's influence had left a subtle impact on the young waitress as well. She recognized the value of her actions being acknowledged, even quietly, and the importance of confidence in her own judgment. She understood that moments of courage and observation were opportunities to make a difference, no matter how small they seemed. Her reflections reinforced her commitment to remain vigilant, honest, and attentive in all aspects of her life and work. The story of the day, though mostly unnoticed by the cafe's patrons, had been one of quiet heroism and meaningful intervention. The young waitress's actions, characterized by awareness, intuition, and courage, had prevented mistakes, ensured safety, and maintained trust. The billionaire's calm presence and recognition had validated her instincts and reinforced the power of subtle, decisive action. Together, their interactions had created a narrative of integrity, vigilance, and human connection that resonated deeply with both of them. As the cafe prepared to close for the day, the young waitress took a moment to tidy the tables and reflect on the events. She understood that her actions had real-world consequences, and that the quiet courage she displayed could inspire others to act with integrity and awareness. The lessons of the day were clear. Vigilance, observation, and honesty mattered, and even small interventions could have far-reaching effects. The billionaire, walking away from the café into the Parisian streets, carried with him not only the memory of a near deception averted but also the enduring impression of the young waitress's insight and bravery. The day had been a reminder that human intuition and careful observation were invaluable, and that quiet, thoughtful action could prevent mistakes and influence outcomes significantly. In the end, the café returned to its ordinary rhythm, filled with the sounds, smells, and interactions that made it a welcoming space. The young waitress, attentive and aware, continued her work with a renewed sense of purpose and confidence. Her actions had preserved integrity, ensured safety, and demonstrated the power of quiet courage. The events of the day would remain a subtle but meaningful part of her experience, reinforcing the importance of intuition, vigilance, and human connection in the everyday moments that shape our lives.